Kettering Health Hamilton is proud to be the broadcast sponsor of the Celebrating Self series. Kettering Health Hamilton, be your best.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Fitness Center for Creative Arts. My name is Ian McKenzie, Executive Director here at the Fitness Center, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you on this little wet, not even quite spring day to beautiful downtown Hamilton, Ohio, as we celebrate our beautiful Great Miami River, the little body of water just to your left, if you hadn't seen it before. As ever, we would like to thank our partners and sponsors and supporters in the Hamilton Community Foundation, the City of Hamilton, ArtsWave in Cincinnati, and the Ohio Arts Council. Please put your hands together for them. I would like to thank our series sponsor this year for this particular season of Celebrating Self, Ms. Kathy Klink. Thank you so much. And also take the opportunity to congratulate Kathy and Frank Downey and the city team. This past Saturday was the 17-strong summit. I believe the third summit we have, 600 people in attendance. Yes, put your hands together. That was absolutely incredible. We are incredibly fortunate to have such a thing as 17 Strong here in Hamilton, and the Fitness Center are proud to be supporters and partners in that. Our sponsors for today, our event sponsors today, are Kettering Health Hamilton. Thank you so very much. And it would be remiss of me to thank our good friends at TV Hamilton, who are also sponsored by Kettering Health Hamilton for these live events. So thank you very much for your continued support and partnership here. Not much going on at the Fitness Center this week. I'm really sorry. This is about it. Except on Friday night we have a Fit and Family Friday. On Saturday, early Saturday evening, we have the Women's Art Club of Hamilton coming to our beautiful galleries down here in a co-production or a co-event with our good friends up at the Strauss Gallery. So that's one exhibition and two places. And then in the evening, we are singing and swinging on this very stage with the Cincinnati Contemporary Jazz Orchestra. Three fantastic female vocalists as we celebrate International Women's Day here as well. So we're excited about that. We're also going to be over with our good friends at the YWCA, supporting them for the Her Story event over at Spooky Nook. And then next week, we're really excited. We're going to bring 800 school children. Every third grader from the City of Hamilton Schools is going to be here for a piratey Peter Pan over a couple of days. Then we change tack and we head out a little east, and we're going to work with our friends at Lakota, and we're going to take 300 pieces of art, school artwork, student artwork, and put it into the Foundry at Liberty Center. So we're incredibly excited about the weeks ahead. Yeah, you can give it applause. I like it. So if you're looking to something to do or somewhere to be, we'd like to see you here at the Fitness Center or out at Fittin' at the Foundry as we continue on. But I am so excited to have this opportunity to really recognize this beautiful body of water next to us, which has been with us. It has divided us. At some points in other people's lives, it's tried to kill them. We are here in March of 1913. That river rose and indelibly changed the history of this great city and left a mark. And I believe at least 200 people lost their lives. So that will really mark where you are in your history, but also your relationship with the river. I was born in a harbour town, but grew up in a river city in Brisbane in Australia. And I'll mention right now, they are looking right in the barrel of a Category 3 cyclone, which is like a hurricane, except it goes the other way around, which is about to barrel into their city, which is about the same size and shape as Cincinnati. So sending much love out to them. But I grew up by the river. Every event was by the river. The art center was by the river. The fireworks were by the river. If you wanted to hang out and have a drink, you did it by the river. It was a really big part of our lives. That's where people gathered. So, and I know Hamilton has had a challenged history with the river over time, both in terms of its personal life, in terms of the floods, in terms of history and architecture. So, and I think it's a great opportunity for us today to learn a bit more. Apparently the river just doesn't go from up here to down there. There's some more of it. I don't know how that works, but Mary Lynn will explain. And I'm also very aware there has been some contentious conversation about the river and the MCD over the past couple of months, and I understand that as somebody who runs a business by the river and also lives in a house that has genuine flood mud from 1913. Every time I shake the rafters in my basement, there's mud from 1913, which is a really good reminder of what's going on. So there will be opportunity for some Q&A afterwards, and I appreciate that. But I'm really excited to introduce you today to somebody who's been really getting involved here in Hamilton and coming to meetings and meeting with people and Vision Commission and city leadership and having that engagement as we look to take our city forward and our growth. And then we're turning some focus towards this great body of water of the Great Miami River. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to the stage the General Manager of the Miami Conservancy District, Ms. Mary Lynn Loader.
Thank you very much, Ian. So my professional life has revolved around water management. Back in, when I first moved to Ohio in 1996, I came here to Hamilton to work at Butler County Water and Sewer. And I worked there for about 13 years and loved Hamilton then. There was so much happening in Hamilton, but it's much different today. I also spent about 13 years down in Cincinnati at the Metropolitan Sewer District of Greater Cincinnati, and too, working on different water management issues as it relates to controlling combined sewer overflows and helping to improve the quality of life through healthy waterways. And so I built my career in this way, and but I have a confession to make, and that is my first job in water management was highly unregulated. I grew up in the country in Georgetown Station, New York, in Madison County, and this is my childhood home. And my job on that 52-acre farm was to take out the trash. Now, if you live on a 52-acre farm, you don't have somebody take out your trash. You do it yourself, and you find a place to put it. And where I grew up, we had a place, and it was behind our barn, alongside a perfectly good creek, the Otselic Creek. And the trash didn't just go away. We actually had a dump next to our creek, and that dump would be a place where I would spend a lot of time playing with that trash and poking it into the horse manure and burning it sometimes. Again, but it's right next to the Otselic River, the Otselic Creek, which I would then come to learn that it would pass by my elementary school, it would pass by my junior high school. Eventually, it would go to near my cousin's house in Binghamton, and then become the Susquehanna River, and then meet up with the Atlantic Ocean. Looking back, it's no surprise that I spent my career around water management. Though thankfully, my tactics and my approach has changed. I'm not just burying trash next to a river. But that early experience really stuck with me. It stuck with me because I thought about where does that creek go? What's in that creek? What lives in it? What else is downstream and who is downstream? And I didn't have the words for it then, but I was thinking, we shape our waterways and our waterways shape us. It's an honor to be here at the Fitton Center with you, a place in Hamilton that celebrates community, connectivity, and connection. Before moving to Ohio in 1996, my husband and I, we were trying to save money to move out of upstate New York, and he was applying to a bunch of graduate schools all over the country for the next fall. And we would eventually move here to Ohio, and he would go to graduate school at Miami University. But first, we needed to save money, and our highest living expense was our housing, our rent. Actually, we lived in a beautiful little, Victorian, gorgeous cottage, and we paid $550 a month rent. So I needed to try to reduce that expense. So, looking in the weekly newspapers, I saw an ad for rent. And here's how it read: 1-bedroom cabin. Denver, New York, in the Catskills, must feed the cows. $75 in the summer, $35 in the winter, to take care of 6 or 7, maybe. I think eventually we wound up having about 9 cows because some of them wound up giving birth. So we signed up because we were young, we were adventurous, and it was part of the master plan. We needed to save money, we needed to get out of New York, we needed to start graduate school. So it was home, and we were young, and it felt like an adventure. At the time, I was working for a nonprofit helping small communities with water and wastewater problems in the Catskill Mountains and the Hudson River Valley. I had just gotten my master's degree in environmental management and policy from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in New York. And having grown up in upstate New York, we were no strangers to harsh winters. But January 1996 put us to the test. A nor'easter dumped 2 feet of snow, and then followed by another 2 feet of snow just days later. And the deep freeze kept it all in place until the rains came. That Friday, I'd gone down into town for work, and by the time I got home that evening, our road was nearly gone, all washed away. The next 2 days, we got 4.5 inches of rain, combined with melted snow and catastrophic flooding occurred throughout upstate New York. This is the town where I worked. A family of 6 drove their minivan into the water and they never made it out. Homes and businesses were gone. Our local A&P grocery store that you can see up there, the east branch of the Delaware River, entered through the back and exited the front. The National Guard was called in to rebuild the roads and bridges and infrastructure and to help clean up the debris. For 6 weeks, we had to park about a mile from our house so we can go feed the cows every day and walk home after going to work and whatnot. And looking back, it really seems like a dream. It seemed unreal. The experience, though, is definitely something that shaped me. And flooding isn't a one-time disaster. It's a challenge that communities face again and again. Years after we left in 2011, another flood occurred in that area, this time taking 10 lives. I've seen what happens when communities aren't prepared, and I've seen the cost of rebuilding and after the damage is done. Look no further than Asheville, North Carolina, September 24, last year. Just this past Friday, the Interstate 40 is now open, 1 lane in each direction. It's been closed for 5 months. Hamilton's story is inseparable from the Great Miami River. It's a river that's powered the industries that built the city, shaped the culture, and continues to define its future. But as much as the river has given, it has taken away as well. Before the Great Flood of 1913, significant storms and floods struck Southwest Ohio between 1804 and 1911. Each time, the communities rebuilt. But in 1913, the relentless flood and the rainfall, 11 inches in just a few days, turned the Great Miami River into a force of destruction. 400 lives were swept away, and at the time there were, horses driving, people around. And my husband always says, why do you talk about the horses? I care about the horses. 1,400 horses drowned throughout the Miami Valley, $100 million worth of damage. That's equivalent to $2 billion today. Streets disappeared, businesses were wiped out, thousands of families left homeless without anything. Hamilton was underwater, but so was the rest of the Miami Valley. But out of that devastation, something remarkable happened. Communities didn't just rebuild, they changed the future. 9 counties, including Hamilton County, Butler County, Warren County, Montgomery County, Miami County, Shelby County, Preble County, and Clark County and Greene County, all committed to ensure this disaster never happens again. And I'm proud to say it hasn't. Why? Because the Miami Conservancy District was created to ensure it doesn't.
In 1913, our region endured catastrophic flooding, with water rising to 20 feet, washing away homes and businesses. To prevent such tragedy, the Miami Conservancy District built a world-class flood protection system, designed by local leaders and constructed with local funds, safeguarding families from the fury of rising rivers. While other cities fear flooding and face destruction, our communities thrive along the river. For over 100 years, the system of dams, storage basins, and levees has offered unparalleled protection, stopping floodwaters more than 2,100 times. But the impacts from weather trends and aging infrastructure are increasing destructive flood events across the U.S. We are not immune to this fate. The number of times the Miami Conservancy District system has prevented flooding has increased more than 200% in recent decades. These extreme conditions cause added stress and maintenance needs. The flood protection system now requires crucial repair, reinvestment, and rehabilitation. After the devastating Great Flood, people came together in an unmatched show of community spirit to build the flood protection system with the promise, never again. To keep that promise, the mission of the Miami Conservancy District is critical to the region's safety and quality of life.
So for over a century, Piqua to Cleves has been protected by the Miami Conservancy District dams and levees and storage basins. The basins that you see in this video, we have flooding rights on over 35,000 acres of land upstream of Hamilton, and those dams are upstream of Hamilton. You don't see them here, but they're working for you. They're designed to protect the people and the way of life throughout the Miami Valley. These structures, this infrastructure, the critical infrastructure requires care and maintenance and investment. And unlike most other flood protection systems, ours offers a higher level of service, and it's a massive system. As you saw in the video, it's very large and it's expansive. I'm going to show another little video in just a little bit. But based on the rainfall trends that we have and we see, the region benefits greatly from the additional level of protection. It's an integrated system of dams and levees and storage basins, and essentially because it's there, we have a healthy and resilient ecosystem. But the protection does not only offer benefits to the property that's protected, that flooded in 1913, but it also benefits the population near and far from the river. Parts of I-75 are protected by the Miami Conservancy District. Parts of High Street and US 127, State Route 127 would be underwater if not for the Miami Conservancy District flood protection system. All of the bridges on the Great Miami River go through a review designed to ensure they're going to be able to withstand the currents that could happen. MCD's protection results in uninterrupted services for 11 hospitals, drinking water plants, wastewater plants that are located down on the river. Those people who are relying on those services are further away, but we're all getting the benefits of that. We protect job centers and the river-centric business districts up and down the river. And protection, it's not guaranteed. There's always a risk, but infrastructure ages and needs evolve, and we need to take care of that. I want to share another video. It's a little bit longer. It's 2.5 minutes, and it was created at right around the same time of the anniversary of the 100-year anniversary of the Great Flood, and it really kind of shows how we protect. It's Dayton-centric. It was made by the Dayton Historical Society, and they have a whole exhibit just south of Dayton at Carillon Park, and it's a whole building that is dedicated to the Great Flood. But just as this video is focused on Dayton, Hamilton shares the same story and the same history, and our system works not just to protect Dayton, but to protect Hamilton and all the other communities as well. So I just want to share this because it'll show you a little bit more perspective of where the infrastructure is that is further upstream and protecting Hamilton.
Like many cities around the country, Dayton was built along a series of waterways. These rivers are what allowed business, transportation, and commerce to flourish in this region. Dayton is also located where these waterways converge. The Stillwater River from the north, the Mad River from the east, and Wolf Creek from the west all terminate into the much larger Great Miami River as it makes an S-curve through Dayton. But with all of the benefits that these water systems provide, there is also a danger. What happens if a very large rainfall sends so much water into the rivers that the riverbanks can't contain it? And where does all of the excess water go? In 1913, a heavy rainstorm occurred, lasting several days. So much rain fell that the ground was unable to absorb it, causing large amounts of rainwater to run off into our surrounding rivers and creeks. As the converging rivers filled up beyond their capacity, they started to overflow in the low-lying areas around downtown Dayton, and the city began to flood. The water was moving with so much force and volume that downtown filled with as much as 20 feet of water in less than one day, covering our streets, flooding buildings, and sweeping away homes. Before it was over, much of Dayton was underwater. To ensure that our city would never flood again, the Miami Conservancy District built levees in the cities and 5 large dams throughout the region, named Germantown, Inglewood, Lockington, Taylorsville, and Huffman. These dams were designed to regulate the amount of water that flows through them and into the city. Today, if our region experiences another massive rainfall, these dams work to prevent an overabundance of water from rushing downstream by restricting the amount of water that can flow into the river. With the dams in place, the additional water backs up onto designated land, such as parks and farmland, where it is held until all the excess water can safely flow through at a controlled rate. This is what prevents our city from flooding today, thanks to the vision, planning, and effort of the Miami Conservancy District.
So that's something to celebrate. A flood protection system that keeps you safe. Just days after the flood, the city of Dayton organized a flood committee mostly of businessmen that worked tirelessly for a long time, but just within 4 months, they were able to raise about $2 million, mostly from large and small businesses in Dayton and I'm sure in Hamilton and Troy businesses, helped contribute to that fund, the flood fund. That $2 million back then is equivalent to about $65 million today. The committee hired a young pioneer of a hydraulic engineer. His name was Arthur Morgan. Arthur Morgan would design and build the flood protection system that would earn many, many different awards, one of which was a gift from Hamilton. But the one I'm really excited to share, because I was just reviewing some notes last night and just realizing how massive and important of a thing this was. In 1922, the engineering record designated the Miami Conservancy District Flood Protection System the project of the year. It joined projects like the Golden Gate Bridge, the Empire State Building, the Brooklyn Bridge. The Miami Conservancy District system was a really big deal, and for the as a gesture of an appreciation, this trophy was given to the city of Dayton from the residents of Hamilton and from the Chamber of Commerce in Hamilton. And I wanted to bring it here, but it was too heavy. It's about 200 pounds, and it's actually in our office, and so it was just too heavy to bring. So you're only getting this image right here. Flood protection system at the time too. It was the largest public works project built in the world at that time for $30 million. And that was all local dollars. The Conservancy District did not have access to federal dollars, no state dollars. It was all local dollars, equivalent today to about $650 million. And Morgan was in good company. As a powerhouse of innovation at the turn of the century, Dayton had more patents than any other city in the country. Innovators like John Patterson with the National Cash Register, Charles Kettering, Colonel Deeds, and the Wright brothers, those were his compatriots. He added to the list of patents, and we celebrate the innovations that accelerated the trajectory for hydraulic engineering and flood protection, right there, right here, and right up in those 9 counties. Morgan would go on to build a similar solution on the eastern side of the state in 1933 after some significant floods that happened there. It's a bigger system, but it was also right after the Dust Bowl. So he modified the design so that the communities would actually have access to clean water on a more regular basis. And then after that, Morgan was appointed as the first chairman of the Tennessee Valley Authority to then kind of take the model that he developed here in Ohio and brought it to the Tennessee Valley Authority with Norris Lake and all the great recreation, flood protection, and power generation down in the Tennessee Valley. Our partnership with Hamilton is strong. Last year, it's been my pleasure to get to know many folks here in Hamilton, from Kathy Klink and Ian and Christina Latta and Mike Dingledine and City Manager Craig Buchheit. And I'll be the first to admit, it hasn't been all smooth sailing from the beginning. But I want to take this as an opportunity to not only celebrate the Great Miami River, but also to engage in an open and honest conversation about what is the role of the Miami Conservancy District. What role do we play in keeping the river, and by extension, our communities and our region safe and thriving? 6 months, we've been really busy. We've formed an advisory committee. Craig is on that advisory committee with other city managers, other county administrators, some county commissioners, different associations. We're having dialogues about who benefits from flood protection and what are ways to consider alternatives to our current methodology. We've completed some in-depth interviews with different thought leaders. We've surveyed 1,200 property owners throughout the 9-county area, all about the idea and concept of current and future flood protection needs, both direct and indirect benefits. In January of this year, we completed a phase 1 of a study on our benefit assessment process and just different options. And that study is continuing to be refined to help us identify alternatives to the historical methodology that we've used for over 100 years. We've modified it over time, about 6 times, and we're looking at modifications to that, because right now it's kind of based on what the extent and the depth of flooding was in 1913. So we've done some benchmarking and working on different alternatives so that we can essentially develop a more sustainable funding model for the next generation of protection. Now, besides flood protection, flood protection is our primary responsibility, but I can't talk about the Miami Conservancy District without the other things we do. So besides flood protection, we have 2 other focus areas. The first is groundwater protection and aquifer protection, which is essentially helping to maintain the clean and abundant water resource we have under our ground. As well as our second focus area is, that I want to talk about is recreation. But first, let's talk about aquifer protection. Now, I bet some of you have heard about the best tasting tap water in the world, right? Here. Yeah, apparently they're doing some updated branding on this, maybe. I just heard, okay. Plastic bottles, save your bottles. So MCD's groundwater preservation area is focused on land and water stewardship of the Great Miami River. And it started actually back in the 60s with some water conservation issues that we were having in the Dayton area on water levels that recovered, and it really was in the 90s that we started getting more focused again on the changes and the challenges and the threats of our drinking water source, the buried valley aquifer that is contained within the sand and gravel deposits underneath the river and alongside alongside the river underground. The aquifer system holds over 1 trillion gallons of drinking water, fresh drinking water, and it's held all throughout the Southwest Ohio sand and gravel deposits. Across the region, the aquifer provides water supply to over 2.6 million people and the possibility to attract so many more. We work with state and federal partners such as U.S. Geological Society and the National Weather Service, and we provide data to them so that they can do the river forecasting models so that we can predict where flooding may be happening in other areas or within our area too. We have trackers on the Great Miami River in various locations, and you can get that access that information on our website. We also have local partners. We work with the Hamilton New Baltimore Groundwater Consortium. Tim McClellan is here, and we work to ensure that our groundwater resources are protected for today, but also for the next generation. Next, let's talk about recreation. So over 50 years ago, the first mile of the Great Miami River Recreation Trail was constructed on the Miami Conservancy District levees. So but for the flood protection system, we would not have a recreational system that we have today. It's a system that starts up in, the whole river starts up in Indian Lake, about 170 miles it flows to the Ohio River. We have 99 miles of trails along the Great Miami Riverway, and it's managed by different cities or park districts, and there's 30 miles at the Miami Conservancy District, as well as the Conservancy here in Hamilton. The Miami Conservancy District, we actually manage about 30 miles, mostly between Dayton and Butler County. And Jackie is here as well with Metro Parks, who manages parts of the trail. So it's a really collaborative effort to manage the recreational assets. And none of the money that we get from flood protection is used for recreation. I want to make that clear too. We have different sources of funding, and flood protection dollars go for flood protection. Aquifer, groundwater funds go to aquifer, and recreation goes to recreation. Another thing we have is the Great Miami Riverway. It's a promotional and a placemaking arm of the Miami Conservancy District. The Riverway is funded by partnerships and agreements with local agencies or cities or counties that want to help support and promote the Great Miami River. Did you know that the Great Miami Riverway is home, within the corridor, it's home to over 2,000 manufacturing facilities and companies. And so investing in our river and our trail system and our communities, it's adding to the quality of life for the region to attract and retain new or existing jobs. And across the whole watershed, there's about 300 miles of trails that stretch throughout the watershed, and it's one of the largest trail systems in the country. Recreation is also enhanced by good water quality. We have some of the best bass fishing. We have many staycation opportunities for paddling, biking, and even surfing. That's right, I said surfing. You can surf River in Dayton. They're doing this right now already. We also have in Dayton in 2015. So this picture up on the top left is an active surfer who is surfing the Riverscape whitewater feature in Dayton, and there's many businesses that have been established along the Great Miami River that are more focused on adventure sports like this, and there's more coming. So in 2015, Dayton converted its Lowhead Dam to more of a safe water feature like this. It's a man-made water rapid, and it draws people from all over. And as I said, there's businesses along the Great Miami River that actually will teach you how to do this and give you, you rent the wetsuit and get out there and surf the river. In West Carrollton, just downstream of Dayton and upstream of Hamilton, they're investing in a $30 million Whitewater River District plan that is essentially designing many features like what Dayton has, and that's what's located up on the right-hand side with a lazy river as well as a whitewater feature there too. In Troy, you can camp on the river. You can literally camp on the river. You take a canoe or a kayak or something to the tents, and you can sleep overnight and float on the river. There's so many things to do and enjoy along the Great Miami River. In Piqua, the upper left picture is a picture of Piqua's brand new Loch 9 Park. This was a converted canal way that they finished construction on last year, and they repurposed it as this gathering space, and it's kind of in the center of town with the rivers just on the other side of that. It's not unlike Markham Park. You have all these interesting little cities all along the river, and they have so much in common. It's beautiful to see. Our engineers worked with Piqua to use the new techniques at the Loch 9 Park to lay the levee back and allow the river to be a little bit more part of the venue. People want to be around river. People want to be around water. It's places like Piqua and Troy and Hamilton and Miamisburg. Miamisburg's got another new park, a Riverway front park. It's about a 7-acre park. And again, located right there in the heart of town. And again, more surfing on the Great Miami River in Dayton. So here in Hamilton, we've got some big ideas. One of the big ideas that Craig's been talking about is this idea of looking at the land between the rails, the Amtrak station and the river. It's a concept that he calls the river to the rails, and I love it. It rolls right off the tongue, river to the rails. So, and I just drove by the Amtrak station. It's, there's so much potential there. But this concept is one that could really embrace the river and to really turn and face the river and allow it to become a front door of a certain area of the city. It could be a mind shift. It could be a completely different opportunity. And for generations, we've been turning our back on the river, and for good reason, right? All those people who died, 200 in Hamilton, over 400 throughout the whole valley. I remember one of my early conversations with Joshua Smith, actually, before Craig started as city manager, and one of the conversations was about many different things, the flood protection needs that we have, as well as one of the questions he had for me was, he didn't realize, first of all, that we had all these assets upstream and that we have all these flooding rights and 35,000 acres of land where we're storing floodwaters, but out of pure interest and desire to improve Hamilton, he asked, why can't our river be more vibrant and like other cities? And why does it need to look like a storm sewer ditch, right? So I guess I got rid of a picture that I really wanted to use, but it's a beautiful picture, like a nice evening picture, and it's taken probably just north of Spooky Nook. And the river, it's straight and it's channelized, and but it's still beautiful and it has a lot of potential. And I wasn't surprised by the question that Joshua asked, because quite frankly, I've been asking it myself for years. But there's a good reason why it looks like the way it does. It's because of velocity. Water is very strong. If we have that high water event, we have to be worried about what the banks of the river do. And the banks are strong. We have the levees that are strong. It's also about flow. And it's also about protection that's been here for 100 years. But there may be an opportunity to rethink it, to reshape it. And as we think about, and as you think about the future vision for Hamilton, I think that MCD can actually help reimagine what does the river look like in Hamilton. And for years, I've heard that there was a desire to create a flood wall mural along the river channel below Cohen Recycling, across from Spooky Nook. And I heard it from Joshua, I heard it from Liz Hayden, from Ian, from Street Spark, but MCD needed to approve it. And so I got our team together and we investigated the condition of the wall. We evaluated, identified, determined what we needed to do to repair the wall. We did those repairs with Hamilton's help. And in 2023, the board approved the mural for the Street Spark, with Street Spark agreeing to a maintenance plan for the wall. And I think Ian sent me that picture, while it was still going on. And it's just a beautiful picture, seeing Ian there next to the flood wall. It's a celebration of partnership and commitment. So beyond assessments and flood wall, what's possible for the river itself? How do we answer Joshua's question or other questions that people have about the river? So this is a picture of the Blackstreet Dam at night. It's not the one I was thinking about from before. It's another pretty picture of Hamilton. But across the country, there are low-head dams that are put into rivers. They're mostly put in for recreation or for boating, for power generation, or for utilities. And within the Great Miami River, we have 20 different low-head dams. MCD owns 3 of them. 2 of them are here in Hamilton. The American Society of Civil Engineers say that low-head dams are connected to hundreds of drowning deaths across the country, just since 2018. They produce hydraulic forces, circulating currents that can drag swimmers, boaters, and others into the churning waters that cause continuous and forcible dunking. About a year ago, the city of Hamilton and MCD kicked off a study with the Army Corps of Engineers to evaluate the 2 low-head dams that we own here in Hamilton. The primary purpose is for us to identify and investigate what are the preliminary design constraints that we need to know for the flood protection system to ensure that we know what those are before any designs or concepts begin, for either full or partial removal of those dams. The initial feasibility study is wrapping up this summer, and from there we'll be looking at next steps and potential funding opportunities to seek out with the City of Hamilton and other partners. So each year, for the last 18 years, MCD works with our Riverway Coalition on an annual summit. This year it's coming up on May 2nd in Miamisburg is hosting it. And essentially what Riverway Summit is, it's probably similar to your neighborhood summit, though we don't have 600 people that show up. We'll probably have closer to like 200. But you're all welcome. And what we do is we talk about the river. We get inspired from other neighboring communities of what are they doing on the river. Learn maybe more about the successes, the lessons learned, the shared goals and visions. Essentially to try to make the river even a better place to be. Next year, I'm really excited to announce that Hamilton, Craig, and Ian have agreed to host the Riverway Summit right here at the Fitton Center in Hamilton. And so, speaking of Hamilton, and the Fitton Center rather, I want to talk about this bowl. So I made this bowl about 30 years ago here at the Fitton Center when I first came. And if you've ever thrown clay on a wheel, you know that it starts with a messy, unformed lump. And it doesn't look like much at first, but with patience, pressure, and vision, it takes shape. Our relationship with a river is much like a lump of clay or a pottery wheel. Right now, you might see uncertainty and raw potential, challenges, but together, we have the power to shape something beautiful. What if instead of turning our backs to the river, we faced it and we reimagined it and we leaned in? What if we saw it as a place to gather, to create, and to build a stronger future? Just like pottery, it won't happen by accident. It takes commitment and willingness to get your hands dirty. The Great Miami River isn't just something we protect, it's something we shape. When I moved here 30 years ago, I carried a memory of a flood that took lives. And today I stand in a city that understands the power and the potential of water and the river. Thank you. Let's keep the conversation going, because like the Great Miami River itself, our best ideas flow when we work together.
We have some time for some questions, and as I look out on the river, we probably have some time for some surfing, because it's choppy out there. Do we have some questions for Mary Lynn? Yes. All right. Coming through. Of course, it's my mother. All right.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Thank you for protecting my home, which is in the German village, was affected by the flood in 1913. However, I feel you've neglected to address the situation who actually pays for the upkeep of the river in Hamilton. And I guess everybody knows that it is just a very small amount of people. A lot of us are of a low fixed income. In 2024, I paid $2,907, and this year I'm paying $2,366. Now, when you had your meeting at the council chambers last year, you gave out a form that said exemption to readjustment of the appraisal of benefits. When I got my utility, my property tax, I rang and said, can I send this? And I was told, no, we don't have it. So could you just explain that and explain what you're doing? Because nowadays, if it floods or the bridge went down, there'd be a lot more people affected than just the few of us who live in that former flooded area.
Yes.
And I think we heard that from people from Westchester and other areas that would be affected if Hamilton's bridge went down. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. So we are I think your question was, there's a few in there, and so in terms of who maintains or takes care of the river flood system here in Hamilton, and that is the Miami Conservancy District. We have a caretaker here in Hamilton that maintains our levees here in Hamilton, and as well as we have floodgates that need to be closed sometimes, and our caretaker here in Hamilton is responsible for doing that based on the river levels. In terms of the 7th readjustment that you're talking about, the issue that we were having meetings about last year with regards to the fact that we were, at that time now, we're 5 years overdue of doing a readjustment, and essentially what that means is we're still using 2012 property values and collecting the same revenue that we've been collecting to maintain this system, collecting the same revenue that we've been collecting for the last 10 or 15 years, actually. We really haven't had any significant increase in our funding since 2007. So that's why we were doing a readjustment last year. However, we stopped that, we paused it, and we're doing a study now to look at and identify who really benefits from the system. It's not just those properties that flooded in 1913, but they're people who use the bridges, people who use the hospitals, people who use the water and wastewater treatment plants, and they rely on them. So we've done some benchmarking with other flood districts, and there's 11 of the 12 flood districts that we've surveyed, and we've gotten information from them. They use this concept of indirect benefits, of looking at, you get a benefit for living and maybe being right in German Village, and you're protected from the river locally, right on the bank and whatnot, but there's areas outside of the river that benefit as well. And so we're doing this study to identify different alternatives so that we can enhance and expand those who are contributing, because more than the 39,000 property owners that currently get an assessment there's more properties that have benefits. And so, like, Craig is on a committee where we're working through alternatives to do that expansion, or consider what are the other alternatives that we can use for our assessments. But I'd be happy to talk with you further about the bill that you mentioned. I'm not quite following all of that.
All right. Any other questions? Yeah. All right. Coming through. Can I get my steps? Oops, sorry, excuse me.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you, Mary Lynn, and other members of the Miami Conservancy District Board that are here today from Dayton, Ohio, in Montgomery County, visiting us, the downtrodden taxpayers, property taxpayers of Hamilton, Ohio, who, by the way, are not currently paying 2012 rates. We are paying double that during this interim of the study period. I have a couple questions that I would like to ask today with a little bit of setup. Now, this is some heady stuff, so I took a couple notes. I hope y'all don't mind that I read a little today. While I remain happy that our interactions and even our conflicts up to this point have led us to the position that we are now in, where the MCD is studying, examining a more modern methodology, like the direct and indirect benefits you're mentioning, which, as you mentioned, all 11 other conservancy districts in the state of Ohio have already long since been employing. I'm still somewhat concerned and disappointed that none of the 4 study options, which you did not dive into today, include what I would regard as the most equitable and fair option, without doubt. While there may be direct benefits and indirect benefits, there's another benefit, a common benefit, some may even call it universal benefit, that exists across every single one of the parcels under the Miami Conservancy District's jurisdiction. Indeed, the world is a much smaller and internet-connected place than it was back in the horse and buggy days of the early 20th century. Thanks to the internet and other technological advances, it's only getting smaller and more interconnected each day. People don't travel 30 miles for work, for business. They didn't do that back in the day, across county lines and bridges. For instance, a local pizza shop may now get their dough delivered from a company coming from Cincinnati, their soda syrup from a company coming from Dayton, and their plasticware from a company north of Oxford. Organizations that offered vital goods and services, I'm thinking now of Butler County's own Shared Harvest Food Bank, which delivers food across 5 counties, were far more local in the past than they are now. So in the event of a disaster, there is something beyond direct and indirect benefits at play. We, across the 9 counties of the MCD and beyond, are equally benefited and would all be affected in the event of a calamity. So while what I perceive to be the best of the 4 options available from the study is to split the bill between about half coming from the some 40,000 parcels that currently pay, and the other half coming from the approximately 568 parcels across the MCD, for a total of 608,000 parcels. But wouldn't it be more fair, balanced, equitable, and modern option to issue a flat tax across the board on all parcels? With 608,000 parcels, assessing each parcel the very flat rate of $19.99 per year would result in $12,153,932 raised by the MCD for whatever purposes it deems necessary, which, by the way, is more than is currently being asked. And this, by the way, isn't speaking towards any of the local, state, or federal money that would be acquired with diligent pursuit of the available grants. $19.99 a year across all parcels. Now, I think there also is some clarification needed as to how the MCD arrives at the number of claiming 608,000 parcels, be it residential, commercial, agricultural, or industrial in the first place. According to research done by request to the Butler County Auditor Nancy Nix and her team, who recently received reporting back from all the other 8 county auditors' offices, there is, according to them, a total of 1,211,409 parcels across the 9 counties that belong to the MCD. If every single one of those parcels, be it commercial, residential, agricultural, or otherwise, were included, that would be a rate of $9.99 a year. I don't believe anybody is going to sue anybody over $9.99 a year appearing on their property taxes. However, that flat rate option is not one of the options that has so far been presented forth by a rather lengthy study. So my questions are this. Given that our only legal recourse here is by electing the judges who serve on the MCD Conservancy Court, all of whom were not elected by part of a county, but by all of the county to represent them, why does the MCD only include approximately half of those parcels as belonging in your jurisdiction? And 2, since you are attempting to modernize this method once and for all, why was a flat tax option not included as one of the 4 study options returned so far, when that is the most reasonable, equitable, fair, and modern solution of all, in something that, if we all get lucky here, can put this issue to bed and we can finally work together and build all the things that you envisioned at the end of your speech? Thank you very much.
So thank you for those suggestions, and we are still in the process of evaluating options. What we got done in the first phase was the beginning of looking at options and tweaking the dials, but it really needs to come down to what is defensible as well. And so while it seems simple to be able to just, charge everybody the same, those properties that are behind our levees, they're avoiding costs of flood insurance. So I have an example of there was a property that was a commercial complex, and it was not protected by, it's not in our watershed, it's in an adjacent watershed within Butler County, and that development that would be comparable to something like, say, a 20-acre commercial complex along another water body that doesn't have the level of protection, that flood insurance cost, a premium cost, is like $300,000 a year. And so to say to somebody in Preble County or to Shelby County, where they're farther away from the river, in Preble County, they might even go to Indiana, you know, they don't cross the Great Miami River. You know, we're looking at these things to ensure that we are developing more of a fair and equitable solution. And while it's simple to just say, just charge everybody $19.99 and be done with it, I wish it were that simple, but it's not. So we're doing the work to ensure that we're going to have a fair and defensible approach, and we also don't want to rush through this. It needs to be right, and I'm very grateful for the folks who are paying the assessments because of the importance of it, right? And we needed to have a rate increase last year because it had been too long and we were utilizing our reserves, and we're going to be out of funds. We would not be able to provide flood protection in 2026 if the rate did not change. And so that the board did have to make that decision. The court approved it. And the court is the governing body that is elected by the people. That's the way it's set up. And we are working as quickly as we can to develop an alternative methodology. And I'll take another question.
Just one moment. I'm going to bring a microphone to you so everybody can hear your question, sir.
Oh, great.
Regarding million parcels versus the 500,000, approximately, or 600,000, the big difference is a lot of the outlying areas in the counties aren't part of this watershed. That's why. A very simple question of geography. Yeah. Correct. The counties aren't along river watershed lines. That's the way it's been from the beginning. So.
Like in Butler County, you've got the Mill Creek watershed that drains down through the heart of Cincinnati. Those parcels are outside of the boundary of the Great Miami River. And so the numbers that you get, if you just look at the whole county, is going to include more parcels than water drains to the Great Miami River.
The county lines are nice square pieces. It was drawn arbitrarily. It wasn't with regard to where the rivers are. So.
Any other questions from the floor?
And that is one of my board members, Michael Van Haren. Thank you, Michael, from Miami County. And Mark Rentschler is here as well from Hamilton.
You're all very quiet today. Oh, Steve Colwell has a question. And he's been filming these for more years than I can ever imagine. He gets to ask one.
What is your relationship with, you mentioned them, with the Army Corps of Engineers?
Yes, thank you for asking that. So that's a great question, and I'll try to be brief here. But when the Great Flood happened, the Corps of Engineers was established, but they were not in the business of what they do now. So our relationship with the Corps is that we work with them in partnership on certain things, but many times when communities have flood protection needs, they'll go to the Corps and the Corps will build it for them, will do the work for them. That didn't happen at the Miami Conservancy District. We really, as I mentioned, the whole system was funded locally. So now we have a relationship with the Corps where we reach out to them and they may assist us, like on the Lowhead Dam study. They have some funds that are available to states or to subdivisions of states like the Miami Conservancy District, and we were able to secure their technical assistance grant, if you will, to assist with that study. We've also are currently working on a project with them on Huffman Dam. So Huffman Dam is one of the 5 dams, and it's just immediately downstream of Wright-Patt Air Force Base. So we're working with the Corps, again, to do a similar study of looking at how could we potentially update and modify the Huffman Dam, and so we're able to get some federal assistance that way. It's usually like a 50-50 match where the Corps will do some of the work, the project, and we provide some funding. But one thing that we are also working on is, you mentioned federal funding, is we were identified and requested of Congress to include us in the Water Resources Development Act. So that's an act of Congress that gets done typically every 2 years. It's typically a bipartisan bill, and we are authorized in the last version of the Water Resources Development Act. That act is what Congress identifies any core projects that could get started as a new opportunity for us, the Miami Conservancy District, to be able to get federal assistance to help us rehabilitate and improve our system. And so we are seeking an appropriation through the Water Resources Development Act, and that would help us get access to funding through the federal government to help recapitalize, to help improve and rehabilitate the system that's over 100 years old, that the federal government and the state government never provided any assistance. Typically, that's done on standard practice, that the feds have assisted communities with projects like that. The Miami Conservancy District was all locally funded, so we are working with the Corps to try to see how could we get resources from funding through Water Resources Development Act to help and reduce the burden on local assessment payers.
Whew. I thought I had a tough job. I don't have to keep the water at bay. We are of time, ladies and gentlemen, so with that, I would like to thank Ms. Mary Lynn Loader of the Miami Conservancy District and her team today. If you would like to know more, there is information right here on both sides. We can take care of you there with the team here from the MCD and the Great Miami Riverway. But we really appreciate you being here tonight. I'm going to come back up on stage and say thank you very much. Still lots to see and do. We have one more of these, one more Celebrating Self for this year. We're going to go to Crazy Town a little bit and talk about a journey to the center of the earth, the great history of Hamilton and the Hollow Earth Society. We've even got a festival, we've got a ball drop, we're embracing it, but let's find out a little bit more what's going on there. So we will see you next month for our final Celebrating Self of the year. Thank you so much. We'll see you very soon.
Kettering Health Hamilton is proud to be the broadcast sponsor of the Celebrating Self series. Kettering Health Hamilton, be your best.